Before we start today's Saturday simulcast with Mike Carmin and Tom Dienhart, some really good news for the Purdue basketball family this morning that Keady was named to the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. So congratulations to the coach. So well deserved. I had the opportunity to work for Gene for a couple of years in his first 2 years at Purdue, and obviously had been around it for a long time. And I think a lot of us were concerned that this wasn't going to happen or wasn't going to happen in the living years. I spoke with Bruce Weber, and he also said the same sentiment. But I think everybody is extremely happy that Keady becomes just the second Purdue basketball coach to make the Naismith Hall of Fame. Of course, Piggy Lambert got it back in 1960, and not many Purdue players have made it. Stretch Murphy, John Wooden, as well as players, are the only two players to have made the Hall of Fame. So a great accomplishment for Keady, and certainly makes for a happier Saturday. So on to the interview with Mike Carmin. Welcome to our Saturday simulcast. It's really a Saturday recording today with Mike Carmin live from Houston, of all places, joining us on the front end of this. I want to thank the Union Club Hotel, the 811 Bistro, and the Boiler Up Bar. And Tom Dienhart will join us for segment 2 after spring football, the scrimmage today. So we'll get a chance to talk to him and get his reaction of something he's not going to see, but he's at least going to talk to Ryan Walters.
That's normal. That's normal.
That's normal. That's the way it works from that standpoint. But Mike, you're a busy man, and we have a lot of topics. And I know you got a day ahead of you today, but it's interesting. We'll start with what you covered last night, Friday night, with Myles Colvin. Obviously the slam dunk contest. He finished runner-up or finished second. Just your observations. In a very broad stroke world, he's that athlete, right? He's terrific in terms of that. But what were your impressions of him and how he handled the finishing runner up, and he put on quite a show in this story you posted on goldenblack.com?
Well, I mean, he had 4 dunks and he had 3 perfect scores from a panel of judges who I have no idea who they are or what their credibility is. But he enjoyed the experience, and I have no idea how this will translate into his freshman season, because dunking is not something you have a game plan for, or you go out and practice, or Matt Painter does not draw up plays for players to dunk. But it did showcase just how athletic of a player he is, and it's something that Purdue needs. Anybody that watched Purdue this year, that had a great year, but they were kind of missing a piece of someone that could get the ball to the rim when your 3-point shot is not falling, do something else. And I think he has the ability to help on defense as well. Being able to potentially guard some players equal of his athletic ability. He seems to have taken that part of his game, a lot of pride into it during his senior year. Now, guarding seniors in high school and guarding juniors in college, or 25-year-olds, who's ever on the rosters, is different. So I mean, he's got a learning curve. He's got a lot of work to do, and where he fits in with next year's team. But he brings an aspect of athletic ability that this team needs.
Yeah, I think too, and again, without being there, but maybe also just because of the way the season ended, and this is maybe laying a little bit too much, but just some positive energy too. I mean, obviously, we're going to talk about Zach Edey and the awards he's going to win, but it certainly is if you're a Purdue fan, maybe a positive. It is a positive development, and maybe a little bit of a breath of fresh air, having to endure the last couple of weeks of the tournament, and you're not involved. That can't hurt the psyche of just the whole program, I don't think.
No, and then you add Cam Heide, who I think is sneaky athletic, just based on watching practice and watching warm-ups and stuff. Now, he's not being defended by anybody, but that's 2 players that give you something maybe you didn't have enough of this season. But it'll be interesting how both those guys fit into next year's team once we kind of figure out what next year's team is gonna look like. But they're gonna play a role, and but yeah, it does maybe take a little bit of the sting. I mean, we're almost a month, not a month, but we're 3 weeks away from what happened, and I think people have turned the page and they're trying to figure out, okay, what does Purdue need to do when they're faced with this situation? Because if Zach comes back, they're a top 5 team in the country. You're headed for another top seed in the NCAA tournament, and then you're headed for another double-digit seed in the first round. So you've got to start looking ahead of how you can get past this point and kind of shake this stigma that this program has right now.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point and something that. What was the environment like last night? Of course, I think it's going to be air on Sunday, if I understand it right. But what was it? Was it a big crowd? Tell us a little bit about that. I was just curious. I saw your tweets, etc.
Yeah, a decent crowd. It was held in a kind of a music venue, which probably was an old gym at one time.
Yeah.
It had a balcony, but most of the fans were down on the floor level. They made enough noise and all that kind of stuff, and of course the announcer was encouraging them to make some noise.
Yeah.
But I never attended one of those events, so I don't have anything to compare it to. But as you remember, Fletcher Lawyer won the 3-point shooting contest a year ago, so we'll see we'll see. But it was a good environment, and everybody was into it. It was just, it's kind of a nice event that. Myles and Carr actually played together on 3-on-3 with the USA basketball. So they had that little competition going. And then, of course, Carr's going to Michigan State. So it'll be a better judge of athleticism when they square off on the floor.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Watch those two face off against one another. Of course, Zach Edey won the AP National Player of the Year. More awards are going to stack up. Give us a little bit of the itinerary just on Saturday, but also Sunday too. The Naismith comes around. He's certainly the odds-on favorite, if not really likely to get those as well. But talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, they spread these awards out a little bit as far as announcing them. The USBWA, which Zach is a heavy favorite to win, gets announced Saturday. The AP was announced the other day, but he'll get that trophy on Saturday as well. Then the Naismith will be announced. I don't know if they announced that before their ceremony, which is Sunday.
Yeah.
Also in Houston, and then the Wooden Award is a week from this weekend, but I think they announced that before the actual banquet ceremony. But yeah, he's cleaning up right now. I don't know physically how they get all these trophies back to Purdue. They'll stack them on the charter plane somewhere, or they get their own seat. Does someone have to stay behind because Zach's got all these awards? But yeah, he got into town yesterday, and he had there was a dinner last night for Naismith winners, and then there's a tweet out there with him and Bill Walton chatting it up.
Yeah, I saw that.
A lot of people, like Zach, and they want to talk to him. I don't think he'll be going to the games tonight. But when you see him walking down the street, you know who he is. I mean,
can't miss him.
I think he may be bigger than the Astrodome now. After seeing the Astrodome yesterday, it get dwarfed by that dome stadium they have here. But yeah, Zach's gonna clean up and hopefully get a chance to talk to him today. Just asking kind of where he's at in the process, and then also this has kind of been a whirlwind for him. Winning these awards. I know when he won the Big Ten Player of the Year, he was, he took some time to kind of reflect on that, and now you added all these national awards to it. I would imagine it's a bit, humbling to 6 years ago he just started playing basketball.
It's an amazing story.
And now he's collecting all this hardware for National Player of the Year, and I hope he's soaking it up. It's one of those things where, in 2 or 3 years, it really hits you. But I just hope he's taking time to kind of enjoy what's going on here.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the Purdue charter or whatever he flew down, and they probably accounted for the weight of all this so that they can figure it out. And welcome to America, so to speak, when you get time with Bill Walton. I hope his head's not spinning. I actually enjoy Bill Walton in his own approach to things, but I'd love to know what Bill the one photo I saw yesterday on Twitter that God knows what he's talking to him about. But
and I would just warn people today is April Fool's.
Yes, it is.
So if you're seeing things about Zach doing A, B, or C, take a step back and think about what today is. Okay.
Yeah, and I think Dan Dockich is going to take the day off too. So that was maybe that will keep that at bay a little bit from that standpoint. Zach Edey, unbelievable story. It remains as such. We're close enough to it here that we I don't think we take it for granted, but it's still really, and I'm stating the obvious here, an unbelievable story.
And just so we're clear, I mean, Zach basically has two options: go pro or stay at Purdue. He's not.
Yeah, the whole thing, and not to get on Dockich, but come on. I mean, that was one thing even I could figure out. He ain't going to the portal. I mean, and now Hunter Dickinson is, and that was surprising. Your reaction to that, just again, is that just the way? You've obviously covered Big Ten basketball at a very high level here, but did that surprise you? And any feeling of where I've referred Georgetown and North Carolina. Obviously, Purdue was very much in the hunt for him back in the day, and I'm not saying that's happening. But what was your reaction to that?
I was surprised a little bit, but after you think about it, nothing really is a surprise with the portal and the way players can go have a new experience. And he's been there a long time. A new voice in his head, maybe from a coaching standpoint. If it is Georgetown, Cooley's a good guy and a good coach, and that would help. He's from that area, so that kind of would fit in.
Yeah.
But Michigan's going to be hit with a bit of a rebuild here because they lost Jet Howard to the NBA. They're going to lose Hunter Dickinson. What does Kobe Buffkin do?
Yeah.
And they did pick up I think a transfer guard from Alabama this week. But they've got some retooling to do, and that's just the nature now of the game. And you've got to adjust. Purdue's in a pretty good situation because they're going to have some turnover on the roster, but it's not. I don't think it's going to be major in terms of numbers, where you have to go out and replace a bunch of people. And I would just say this about Hunter Dickinson coming to Purdue. I think Purdue's had its share of the word Dickinson here in the last month or so they don't need another. They don't need,
I didn't even think about that.
They don't need that coming in right now. But yeah, he did. It wouldn't be. I mean, there's really no spot for him at Purdue like that. But NIL will probably rule his decision, as it will with everyone. But yeah, I mean, from a Big Ten standpoint, it hurts because you're losing a marquee player. But if you're trying to win the league, it creates a bit of an opening for some teams.
Yeah, no question. All right. Speaking of great performances, and you got to watch the second half last night, and nobody knows women's basketball, certainly from the Purdue sphere and the Big Ten sphere better than you. Caitlin Clark, unreal performance last night in the Hawkeyes win over South Carolina. And looking at again, if also that broad stroke, and I'm not minimizing anything we were talking offline about. She plays basketball like Carson Edwards does with a better passer, certainly, but she just put on another clinic. And we talked also offline a little bit about why women's basketball is really getting a toehold. Your theory is, I think, very well founded about what happened with COVID. But talk about her. Maybe the role of Big Ten, and maybe how that might help Purdue continue to raise its level with Keady Gerald's and the company, just because of the notoriety the league is going to have with having two teams in the Final Four.
Well, Caitlin's got the moxie of Carson Edwards, not afraid to shoot from wherever. I mean, she had a few logo threes last night in the second half that I saw, and I told somebody earlier in the day I thought she's going to have to hit some logo threes for them to win.
Yeah.
And, the fact she put up 40 against arguably the best defense in women's college basketball, they have, they've just overwhelmed teams with their defense this year. And for her and Iowa to put up the points that they did, but that's how they needed to win. They were not going to win a 50-45 game. They needed to get in the 70s, potentially in the 80s to win that game. But she's a special player. She's probably a once in I don't say generation, but she's a once in a decade type player.
Yeah,
that has really taken the sport by storm, elevated the play of not only Iowa's program but the Big Ten programs as well, and shined a big spotlight on what's going on not only at Iowa but in the Big Ten, and that can help all the programs as well. And to have a Big Ten team in the championship game again, it's been I think 05 was the last time.
Yeah.
Now I'm not counting Maryland in this because
when
they won their national,
I don't like it. Yeah, they weren't in the Big Ten.
They were not in the Big Ten. So Purdue's the only team right now, only program to win a national championship on the women's side in the Big Ten, and Iowa can make it, number 2 on Sunday against a really good LSU team. And interesting, they have to go through a Maryland player, Angel Reese, who transferred to LSU in the off season. But Caitlin she's matured. I think she's gotten stronger. She doesn't teams played her with physical presence early in her career. She got knocked around a lot. I didn't think she handled it very well, but I think she's matured and has learned to handle it. And she's gotten stronger both physically and mentally to put her in that kind of position. Extremely hard worker. And I mean, Katie Jobs would love, that's the goal of Katie Jobs. Go find a Caitlin Clark type player to kind of bring your program up. And that, one player can do that in a hurry, but everybody's searching for that type of player. But you go through, these things. Paige Beckers from UConn's been out, and she's on Caitlin Clark's level as far as, talent goes. So the women's game has a lot of that right now. And I think that's where people kind of migrate in this sport. They migrate to individuals more than they do teams, unless you're rooting for a specific team. But just the casual viewer, the casual fan will migrate towards a Caitlin Clark because they enjoy watching her play, how she plays the game, the effort that she puts forth. So I think that has a lot to do with kind of the momentum that the sport is gaining. And I would really like to see, from a television standpoint, them kind of break away from the bundle that ESPN has with them and just get their championship, bidded out to another network, or it might be ESPN too, but they've done enough, and I think they can generate enough revenue to be a standalone product for the NCAA instead of being bundled with the 90 other championships that they have.
Right.
The men's is separate, and of course it's a big revenue generator. Football is separate, but everything else is kind of bundled together. And the networks get it kind of cheap that way. But I think women's basketball has reached a point where I think there should be a network or two interested in doing the whole championship. And if that happens, how does that look? How does that change? I'm sure ESPN would love to hang on to it as much as they can. Because they've been a part of the growth as well in showing every game on TV. So I kind of rambled on a lot of things that you asked me to ramble about, and I did.
But your theory too, and I misspoke. Ohio State, there's only one Big Ten team in the Final Four. Ohio State have reached the Elite Eight before getting beat. But yeah, I mean, I think in your talk about what happened in COVID and that really brought another level to it. Talk about that and just the level. And again, you're absolutely right. You can't. It's must see TV if you like great competition and a player that just, for a lack of a term, balls out. She's unbelievable to watch. It's compelling TV. But talk about that, just the whole notion of what went on in COVID, obviously, and the disparity that kind of raised the level of awareness too on women's basketball.
Yeah, the COVID situation where they were comparing the weight rooms, the women really didn't have a weight room compared to what the men had, and it brought the inequities out a lot. And it kind of gave them a platform to push their sport forward again. And it created a situation where the NCAA had to even it up, and they should have been evening it up for a long time, but they didn't. But just the fact now that the women can use the March Madness logo and the trademark, which they didn't use before, I think is a huge benefit. But it also just created a big awareness about women's basketball and what's there, with the coaches speaking out about it. It has led to this movement, and I think there's more and more interest in women's basketball, women's sports in general. And I firmly believe, I have no data to back this up, but I firmly believe that sponsorships, because you have more women CEOs in the country running companies, running businesses that want to put their dollars and associate it with women's sports, women's basketball, because that's how they want to be aligned. And I think those opportunities are out there. If who's ever in charge of that would pursue that. I mean, the men have a long line of corporate sponsorships, and I think the women benefit from that a little bit. But I think the NCAA could probably line up a long list of corporate sponsorships just for women's basketball or women's sports. Volleyball's another sport that probably down the line should have its own championship contract as well. But yeah, there's a groundswell that's really moving, not fast, but at a quick pace, I think, so these sports can benefit from it, and the athletes can benefit it as well.
Yeah, and last question, Purdue, I always look at from a Purdue perspective. Obviously, Purdue's got a good returning nucleus. Last year, Keady Gerald's team did make the NCAA tournament before being ousted by St. John in a very close game. But the tier effect, and again, you're asking, I'm commenting from someone that's very much on the periphery of watching it, but you have, it seems to me that there is a little bit less of, it used to always be UConn, Tennessee, certainly South Carolina, and they were just it seemed like heads and shoulders above everybody else. Are you finding that starting to even out? Purdue still, lost this year, I don't know, roughly 20 points to Iowa, Indiana, et cetera, maybe even more at home to Indiana. But my point is that you see more of that coming together too. Does the portal have some help of balancing some of that out too in the long run?
It does, and it will, because you're only a player away with a lot of instances. But Sunday's championship game won't have a number one seed in it.
Yeah,
it'll be a 2 and a 3. And you had 2 number ones in the Final Four, even though you had a first-timer in Virginia Tech, which, former Purdue player Keanu Traylor, I think, had a pretty good game last night for Virginia Tech. These things, UConn's still going to be UConn, and they're going to get Paige Beckers back next year. and I think someone wrote that it was the end of UConn when they lost to Ohio State in the Sweet 16. I think they forgot who was sitting on the bench. UConn will be back. UConn's not going away. Tennessee's crawling its way back to trying to get to the level that it was. But you're seeing new faces. You're seeing some new teams reach the national stage a lot more. South Carolina, they're
not going away,
right? But they were kind of the mini modern day UConn here, where they won 40-some in a row, and now they get beat. I don't think it's a watershed moment like it was when UConn had its 100-game winning streak snapped a few years ago, but it's still a significant moment for the sport. But things need to pick up a little bit, and I think you're going to see more and more new faces with Keady's program. They took a step forward this year. They need to take another step forward next year, contend for the top 4 in the Big Ten. Maybe win a game or 2 in the NCAA, but it's still going to be kind of a slow process. And she's perusing the portal as we speak, trying to figure out who can fit. There's some options that have come available here over the last week that I'm pretty sure she'll be involved in, that can really help their team. And she needs a kind of a game changer to help elevate that. And we'll see what that does. And I think there's some things coming down the pike for her program that will help solidify maybe some in-state recruiting that will keep Purdue in focus in Indiana and trying to get the best kids out of the state.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting storyline to watch. All right, thanks so much, Mike. We'll let you get back to your awards tour and all that you're doing. and we appreciate everything that you're doing in Houston, and safe travels back. We're not going to take a short break. We're going to transition electronically to Tom Dienhart and talk a little bit of Purdue football following its Saturday scrimmage. And I know Tom had a chance to talk to Ryan Walters. Be interested to hear what he has to say. So stay tuned. We'll be back in a blink of an eye for the next segment of the Saturday simulcast. Tom Dienhart joins me, Alan Karpick, here for a little bit of spring football talk and more. I do, because you've been such a long time Purdue observer, and I wanted to get your comments on Gene Keady. I mean, obviously your childhood days, you had a chance to see him in Mackey Arena. It's quite an honor for Gene to get named to the Naismith Hall of Fame. I just want to get your quick reaction to that.
Yeah, I tell you what, pretty cool. Like you said, Alan, I remember that first year, 1980, 81, I was a sophomore in high school. He took over, and 25 years later, just to see what he accomplished, it's just nice to see him get this accolade, right?
Yeah.
He's around for everybody still to enjoy. He's certainly a treasure to this community, this fan base, this alumni base, and to a lot of different communities as well. So a true throwback, Alan. And again, it's nice to see him be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with all of his peers, and to be recognized and honored this way.
You know, you and I both, and you more than I, as a schoolboy athlete, but had coaches that made impact. You think about Gene Keady.
Yeah.
He coached in high school, junior college. He coached mid-major at Western Kentucky, came to Purdue, NBA, USA basketball. Bruce Weber, I got a chance to talk to him earlier today, and he said, this is a body of work award. Yes, he won 512 games at Purdue, but this is a lifetime achievement award as a coach.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, Alan. A lifetime achievement. Coached in so many different levels that you just talked about, and just a guy again. That deserved this accolade. I remember there was a story, Alan, you probably recall this, when he was thinking about taking the Purdue job. I think Al McGuire.
Yeah.
He said, don't do it.
You'll never beat Bob Knight. You'll never beat him.
You know what, Al? I think he finished one game over 500 against Indiana, or against Bob Knight, I should say.
21-20. Yep.
Yeah. So how about that? And the fact that he went nose to nose with that guy for probably 20 years, their careers overlapped, and he more than held his own against Coach Knight. Allen. The Big Ten championships, I still love that team we talk about, 1983-84 with Rowinski. Yeah. I love that the other teams, and I was in college too, the Lewis teams that were so good, 3 number 1 seeds in the NCAA tournament. Glenn Robinson. I mean, you can go on and on with not just the individual players, but the team achievements were outstanding, Alan, and just the lives impacted beyond all the All Big Ten players and the Big Ten championship trophies. There's probably hundreds of guys we know he's coached that still really are impacted by the lessons they learned playing for Gene Keady.
Yeah, Bruce Weber is any example. He said the coaching community is just overjoyed because it is an achievement, and all that he has meant to a lot of different guys in different roles. Not always, the A role. Heck, he was an assistant coach for Steve Lavin of all things. You think about that. Right. He has truly done it all. All right. A coach that's not in the Hall of Fame yet, but he is getting his feet wet, and Ryan Walters, you had a chance to talk to him today after Purdue's scrimmage. We got some pictures from Chad Kroc over that will at least know that a scrimmage did exist. But I wanted to get your feel. You've been around a lot of coaches for a long time. This is a guy that's just getting started, is self-admitted, even in his 6-minute talk today. He said, this is new. This is new for me. But just your vibe from him early on. I mean, I know I've seen all of practice, but every picture I see of him, everything we talk about, he's always throwing a football, has a smile on his face. But just your early vibe on what you're hearing, not necessarily from an X's and O's standpoint, but just from a feel standpoint from Ryan Walters.
Yeah, I think that energy, that vibe is a good way to put it, Al. And I think you definitely get a very positive vibe from Coach Walters and this entire staff. We've talked many times about the youth that permeates the coaching staff as well. And that may be a good thing in this sense at Purdue. It's different, Alan.
Yeah, that's right.
And, I think we're seeing some of that youthful vibe allow them to connect to the current roster. That's the firsthand accounts we get talking to players and even support personnel that we talk to, at least I talk to from time to time. And on the recruiting trail too, right?
Yeah, making
early returns. I think they had 5 commitments already out. They're bringing in some pretty high-level guys almost daily here to West Lafayette. They had a couple real big timers here today among about 15 recruits. So yeah, I think again, the youthful vibe from Coach Walters, a confident guy, Alan.
Yes.
Which is good. I'd rather have a confident head coach. Everything seems possible to the young, and you need a lot of energy to be a successful coach at this level, my friend. There's a lot of long hours, and he's certainly going to be able to devote that to this program. And it's just going to kind of be fun to see how he imagines Purdue being, and if he can get this program to where he thinks it can. Because Alan, he obviously is very intrigued by this job. When he got it, he goes, look, some people were trying to tell me this was a rebuild, because this team just won the Big Ten West title last year. This is a good program. So I think he believes he still has a lot of good pieces here to work with.
Yeah, interesting in that. So he certainly talks a lot, and not surprisingly, about number 1, Hudson Card.
Yeah.
I wanted to get your feel. Again, you get to watch him a little bit early at the early parts of practice, but also just that coach-player, relationship. He's not afraid to be pretty effusive in his early praise of Card. And Card also, there's a lot riding on what he can bring to the table. But what insight do you bring to that, or just from watching the body language and also watching Hudson Card spin it from time to time?
Effusive is a good way to put it as far as to characterize Ryan Walters' praise of Hudson Card so far. Even offensive coordinator Graham Harrell, they have not been bashful, Alan, about how they feel about Hudson Card from a positive standpoint, which is kind of a contrast. Jeff Brahman would compliment people, but I guess he wasn't quite as effusive.
Yeah, there you go.
I guess it doesn't really matter in the end. You want to have confidence in your guys, right? You want to express that confidence publicly, especially in your quarterback. It's no secret, Alan. There's a lot that rides on number 1's shoulders this year. He was the very first guy they went out and got. I mean, Alan, they really hadn't even hired Graham Harrell yet. That was done remotely, and Ryan Walters got on an airplane, flew to Texas, picked up Graham Harrell, who was recruiting from West Virginia, threw Graham Harrell a Purdue shirt, said, we're going to Austin, Texas to recruit Hudson Card. I mean, there was, again, that kind of shows you the sense of urgency and how much they wanted this guy, how much they knew they needed this guy. So, they're going to be behind him 100%, right? And I've got to talk to Hudson a few times.
Yep.
In formal settings, after practices, and I caught up with him at that Boys and Girls Club event this last week too. A real soft-spoken guy, Alan.
Yeah.
He seems very likable. From all accounts, he's well liked by his teammates too. So his personality seems to be engaging, and I think physically the talent on the field, like you said, you watch him throw, very impressive. And Ryan Walters talked today too, Alan, about that ability to run the football, the ability to extend plays with your feet, and that's going to be a big part of what they want to do. So he seems to check a lot of the boxes, and this is his team, Alan.
Yeah.
Make no mistake about it. September 2nd, Fresno State, Ross-Ade Stadium. Number 1 will be under center, and he's going to obviously have to play well if Purdue wants to get back to the postseason in 23.
Yeah, no question on that. Okay, Nick Carraway, another one that has caught your attention, and you have a chance to talk to him this week. He passes the eyeball test. He passed it last year and made some plays last year. I think he got a start to some things. I'm sure under Mark Hagan, he learned some things as well, though the speed of the game is always something you have to catch up to. Talk about not only Carraway, but a defense that Ryan Walters and company knows how to coach defense. We're pretty sure that that's the case. But defense is going to have some pieces to come, but some guys that might be able to jump forward, and Carraway might be one of those guys at jersey number 5.
Yeah, outside linebacker, the spot Nick Carraway and Corday Sidner are going to play in this defense, Alan. I think that could be maybe the strongest position on the D. Kydron Jenkins hasn't practiced all spring. I don't suspect he will. He has a shoulder issue. He's going to figure in an OLB. Scotty Humpich will too, but he's another guy who's been out.
Yeah.
Roman Pateri, the redshirt freshman from Louisiana, and Will Helt, the true freshman from Carmel. I think those players there could be really special beginning the game with Sidnor and Caraway. But I'm going to say this, Alan. I think the defense has more questions than the offense, in my mind. The back seven, I should say, I'm just going to say the secondary on defense. A lot of work has to be done there, Alan.
Yeah.
Especially a cornerback. I think they need at least 2, maybe 3 corners out of the portal. I'd take a safety. I think they may want some help on the interior defensive line at nose tackle. I think more so a defensive end, and maybe even an inside linebacker. But again, I think because those defensive coaching chops of Ryan Walters, I think that's already going to resonate, or has resonated with some of the kids they brought in, and it should resonate with portal guys here too,
Yeah.
Al. Now, April 15th, that's when the second window opens, April 15th to April 30th. And it was May 1st to the 15th, but that was changed in the fall. So that's the date, April 15th, to circle. Now, grad transfers can always come and go as they please. And we saw that this week, Alan.
Yeah.
Purdue shockingly lost Sione Finau, probably projected starting guard, who's going to leave the grad transfer. So again, what I'm trying to say long-windedly here is I think Purdue is going to be very active in the portal here, comes into spring ball, Alan. And I think a lot of activity is going to probably take place on defense.
And you've already hinted on this, and just Ryan Walters and chops as a defensive back, and what he brings to that. One would think that depending on who's out there in the portal, that Purdue's going to be an attractive place for a guy like that to come in and play, because you're going to get good learning, so to speak, not only from Ryan Walters, but from that staff.
Especially in the secondary, which is what he coached. Look at the players he developed at Illinois. First-round draft choice in Devin Witherspoon, probably. Remember, they have the one kid coming from Stanford already. So Turner Muhammad is a cornerback. So he'll get here after he finishes up his work out in Palo Alto. That's one corner they have coming, but they need more help than that, Alan. So, and I think, again, his ability to sell what he's developed and what he's done throughout his career, I think you'd think would resonate with a lot of these guys in the portal.
I think you're right.
The one thing he's got that's going to resonate is I think he can sell playing time.
Yeah, I think he can.
You come, you're going to start. So you're going to at least play a lot. So that's what everybody likes to hear. That makes everybody sit up in their chair a little straighter. They all want to play ball. They all want to start. So I think he's going to be able to offer at least the opportunity, a very good opportunity, if you're not starting, at the very least, to play a lot if you're a cornerback, especially.
All right. Well, we'll let you get back to your day job, which has been all encompassing you with spring ball and recruiting and all the work you're doing, the great work you're doing. We're grateful for that. I do hope you have a good rest of your weekend, and all of you watching and listening, please do the same. Enjoy the basketball games this weekend, both the men and women. Boy, Caitlin Clark, unbelievable.
How about that?
Oh my gosh. She and Carson Edwards, I'd like to see them play one-on-one, but that's fun to watch. It's really a fun weekend. There'll be a day, Tom. There'll be a day when Purdue is playing in this. Maybe if you and I both live long enough. Again, we've lived through a couple of them, but again, it's a celebration of the best of college athletics this weekend. So, Tom, thanks again. Thank the Union Club Hotel, the 811 Bistro. And we appreciate them as well. And we'll be back next week with some more scintillating topics, I'm sure. I don't know. It's Easter weekend, and whether what we'll put together. We might take a week hiatus and go into the following week. But that's the good thing about this. You never know when we're going to show up. So again, have a great rest of your weekend, Tom. Thanks for all you do. Thanks to all our watchers and listeners. And we'll see you next time on our Saturday Simulcast.